Probably just to do the thing, because like if you just do the thing, it's very cliche, but like what's the worst thing that could happen from doing this? Because I struggle sometimes, a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of like, there's someone really important to me that always says it's not failure, it's feedback. So
she sells oysters.
yeah. She sells what? She sells oysters at the street. What?
This is Bantu, the African Creative Podcast. Hello, welcome to Bantu, the African Creative Podcast. I'm Adetunji. This is our second episode, and this time around I speak with a Kenyan illustrator and calligrapher. Her work is very unique, has a very distinct art style, and I was really curious to try to get into what inspired all that. What were her experiences and where did she come from? Who she is as an artist. We also talk about the realities of gaining international collaboration opportunities as an artist from Africa, in the diaspora, or in Africa at home. Enjoy the show. I have with me in the studio Nzilani Simu, also known as Kulula. She is a Kenyan visual artist and a teacher at the Africa Digital Media Institute. We're here to get into her story. Nzilani has such a unique art style, a unique visual style, and the fact that she's been able to create a unique calligraphic style infusing African elements and bits of our culture into it with the colors and the type, I think is really, really amazing. And I'd be very, very happy to introduce Nzilani Simu.
Hi.
No. Welcome to the podcast, Nzilani. The first thing that would really love to get into is your background. And so I'd like for you to tell us, where did you grow up and how did this art thing all start?
Okay, so I grew up in Nairobi, Kenya, and I went to school here my whole life, like primary school, all the way till high school. And then, so while I was in school, I used to draw, but I didn't do art in school. I wanted to, but I think I got a B somewhere, like in of the younger, in a younger class. And then so the options we had were either art or home economics. And then I asked my brother, who was, the wise guy, and I asked him, which one do you think is the better one? And he said, I think you'd rather know how to cook because you can always draw anytime. So I did the home economics and I didn't do the art because I was like, oh, I'm not even that good at it. Let me just, I'll just do it. But as time went on, I would always I still tried again to do the art again while still in high school, but somehow other classes came up. So it was always looking for me, but I was always looking for it, but I never did it. And then I went to university. I did my undergrad in Canada at Western Ontario, and I did sociology. And when I did the sociology, I failed one course. And to replace that course, I had to take something to top up at the end so that I could get my degree as I wanted it at the last year. And the course I took was an art course. So
really?
So I took a foundation year summer course. So it was like 1 year of art. And it was amazing. I mean, the difference between, even though I love the sociology, the difference between the way I was doing the sociology and doing the art was like I would leave the studio at like 11 p.m. I wanted to really be there. And it was summer, so my friends were out, but I would want to be in the studio. And so I did that art foundation course. I came back to Kenya. I was looking for a sociology job type, connected job. And then while I was doing that, I just said, let me do computer courses so I can learn applications to do art with. So I did a certificate at a local college here, Cool Graphics. And with that, I got enough skills to do computer graphics. So then I got a job doing marketing and doing the graphics. Not the like, so I had enough. I was like the random. It was a parastatal, so I could do. They just needed someone who can just do the business cards, that kind of thing. And so I did marketing and that, and then from there I went to an ad agency. So I did work for 1 year at one of the big ad agencies in Kenya called Scan Group. And
WPP
WPP
organization.
Scan Group, yeah. Right now it's WPP. At that time it was McCann Erickson. So I worked there, but I was at the lowest level. If there's lowest level of designer, like, align this text this morning, very, very low level, low level. But it was high pressure, low level. I used to do this thing that's called the electricity interruptions. And if you get that wrong, the power company can sue the ad agency for the amount for getting the electricity wrong that day for the country.
Wow.
So it was high pressure for like 3 hours every day. It's just aligning text like a Word document, but it was very high pressure. So in a way, but strangely, that high pressure meant that I learned how to work under high pressure. And one of the things about the design that's really important is typography, which is aligning of typography. So this job that was like very tiresome and ad agency life, which is really, really was toxic at that time, at least.
It must have been
very toxic. And though I made amazing friends there, but very toxic work environment. It helped me a lot. So then while there was one of the designers said, why don't you go to school and get a degree for this? Because if you do, you might be able to go faster in this career. You can still get to places, but you might be able to go faster. You have the talent to go faster. So I think I mentioned this to my mom, just mentioning, and my parents are very kind, extremely kind. And they said that they would pay for another degree. So I'm very grateful for that, because there's no way I made enough money at that ad agency at that level to pay for myself. But at some point I didn't even want to go, but then my mom now took it on, and she became African mother and said, if you don't have a degree, this is not real. So you have to do this thing. So
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Why did you not want to go anymore at some point?
At some point, because I then started seeing people can make it without a degree. So many designers can make. Some of the people there have no degrees, who are amazing. And then I wanted my friends, but then she's like, nope. You have to go. You have to get it now. It's over. Either you go on the streets or you go to this university that's available.
Ultimatum.
Ultimatum. So I went to Malaysia, which Kenya had no graphic design degree available. So I went to Malaysia, where it's about the same price as Kenya. It's just that I'm in Malaysia, so you're paying for that. And then it was great experience to be in Malaysia. Malaysia itself is a whole different culture. I think being in Africa, we're exposed to Western culture. So going there was real culture shock of even what you eat for breakfast, and just different type of culture shock. And it was really interesting to be there. Adjusting, it was good. I made good friends as well. And what was good about being in Asia is that the competition, the design level was really high, like some of the students I was with. So I was really pushed. So I always say that I could have been as good, you can learn design on the job or whatever, but to be at a place where I had the luxury to think, I had the luxury to be taught by amazing designers, to have competition like other people who I'm seeing around me that have unique styles. Indonesians are very good at like illustration and graphic design. I don't know.
They happen to be.
They're one of the best. So there were a lot of Indonesian students that really challenged me there. And so I left, so I left there with a degree, and I was very happy. That was really good experience to get that. And then came back to Kenya. Always come back to Kenya. I love Kenya.
Yeah.
So I always come back. I've never worked for long or anything in the other places. So I came back to Kenya, and when I was here, I worked freelance for a short time, and then I started working for an ad agency, a creative agency. It's not really an ad agency, but a creative agency called Arc Africa. And
is this because they don't produce advertising, or they just...
They do, but their focus is that they're multifaceted, so they can create a solution for your business. They can, they're not trying to, the solution is not always an ad. So
yes, of course.
Is it, what are we going to do? And then branding at a very, very like thinking level, design thinking, a lot of design thinking. Yeah, it's a really great agency that I work for, and I learned an incredible amount being there. That was for 3 years. And then I left there to do freelance. And then while freelancing, I then because freelancing was difficult at first, but it was amazing when I left there because I got to think. I just did, I did nothing for some time. I got to think. And that's when I started Kulula during that time period.
Yeah. Now, I'm just going to stop you there because I'd really like to unpack a few things, especially your time at Arc Africa. It says on your LinkedIn profile, which I snooped, that you are an art director at Arc Africa. Is that correct? What type of projects did you have the opportunity to work on, and how might that have influenced your work that you did later down the line? Or how did you sort of carry what you had learned at Malaysia and then start putting in that sort of new design perspective into what you did at Arc Africa?
So at Arc, it's a very small agency. So there were probably like maybe 4 graphic designers at any one time, maybe 3 actually maximum. And then 3 strategy people. 4 designers, sometimes there's overlap. Everyone does strategy, so everyone's an art director, and then there's the main creative director. And the projects we did things like, so in Kenya, we have the brand Java, that is a big cafe type of, let's say, if I had to put it, Starbucks of Kenya, and now moved into East Africa. And we worked with them to like do an audit where we would go in, be like secret eaters, and so we're designers, but we're immersing ourselves into the situation. So we learned a lot about, like, it's not just about the design you're creating. It was design thinking in practice. So we were really like immersing. How do you translate what you've learned into design, or translate what you've learned into strategies? And so you weren't just a designer, you're also a strategist. You're sitting together, you think. So we did that. We did other projects there's a Morandat. There's a meat company here in Kenya that sells aged meats. We worked on that, and we went to the farm, so no project ever was like, here's the brief, and it was never like, here's the brief, do this, unless we couldn't go to that place. No, you had to immerse, you had to go into that place and understand and speak to the people. And you'd so Java, I was speaking to the CEO. If I went to the meeting, I'm not just a designer, I'm the one speaking to the CEO to understand what's happening. So it was really good in terms of breaking down it was really good experience being there in terms of breaking down how a design is meant to work to create something that's very holistic, or, that captures the whole idea of a space. So it's kind of like, from the learning that I did, I learned how to design, or that, in school. And you learn that it's almost like the dream of being able to speak with the real client and being able to really immerse yourself came true at Arc Africa. It's like, I was able to do that, rather than where I was before at the ad agency, where I was just the lower level.
Aligning.
Yeah, we're aligning text. Where even some of the art directors there never met their clients, they just get a client service who tells them what to do. Yeah, so there was no client service at Arc. You're the client service, you talk to the client. So you it's almost like your freelancers who've come together to create something bigger than themselves. So it's a very good place to learn.
This sounds like a lot, almost like what IDEO does. And it seems to me that there was was this something that was really pioneering at that time? It doesn't
Extremely.
seem like there was so many people doing that.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anyone who's reached their level yet. I think even when IDEO came to Kenya, they housed themselves at ARC the first few months because
Really?
that was the closest. I think there was some sort of, they saw alignment to ARC because they had space in their offices. So I had left by that time, but IDEO, in fact, I mean, that's all. When we were there, it was IDEO. We'd be like, okay, so what's the kind of thing? You know, the boss would be like, is this what IDEO do? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's exactly that, actually. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And was illustration a part of your work at ARC?
So at ARC, no. A bit, very little. Just a few ideas. The illustration I would do was doodling in meetings. One of my bigger designs in Kulula was actually doodled within a meeting. I always remember that. And I remember feeling the energy of like the boss being irritated at me just doodling at all these meetings. But it's the thing, you know, designers, sometimes you need to doodle creatives to hear, to concentrate. So I would be, and ironically, I had won when I was in Malaysia. When I finished, we all, like a few students, won awards when we graduated, and the award I won was the illustration award. And I've never thought of myself really as an illustrator. Like from when I was in school, I was a cartoon illustrator. I always thought of myself, there's illustrators, and then there's people like me who draw doodles. And so even when I won that award in university, I was like, oh, they're just giving me because they have to give an award. But I was like happy, but it was So when I went back into the workplace, it was more like I didn't sell that part. That was more like a thing I do on the side. It's a doodle. And then now when Kulula came, it was too much inside me. I just had to create these things and get over that feeling and just put myself there. Yeah.
So let's talk about Kulula. Kulula seems to be a lot of things. And just for our audience, because this is audio and nobody's watching this, would you be able to describe for us what Kulula is and what it looks like? And maybe speak in terms of a whole.
The whole thing. Okay. In terms of the whole, so Kulula is, okay, so it's just my ideas. Yeah. So all the time, whichever countries I went, I would look at stationery and I would love it, like spend hours in a stationery shop. And I was like, how can I want this one, my own, I want to make my own of these. So I'd say there was an element of, I want to make my own, whether it's postcards or whatever. And then, so when I started, and then I wanted to make sure or try not to make something that's very foreign looking, because it's very easy to imitate a Rifle Paper Co., who was a very big inspiration for me. You know, the flowers kind of thing. Yeah. And I was like, it's very easy for me to imitate this, but how can I make my version of it? And I do have a friend who is like a pioneer in this called Lulu Kitololo, who's a brilliant designer, artist. And she was also inspiration to me in terms of she'd already done it. She'd started producing these books and things while she lived in the UK. And I was like, I can also do this, you know, this is possible. And so I created, so I just did a few designs. I had a friend who had some pop-up for her fashion clothes, Ichulu. And she said, come with your postcards. The pop-up is in a week. Your postcards will have a space. So I decided to make my postcards and I had them, then people bought them. So that was the encouragement I need. I always thank her for it. Her shop is called Ichulu. Let me just plug that there. Yeah. Cool. ICHYULU. And
link in the show notes, people.
Yes. And so I'm always grateful for that. And so then in terms of the actual designs, it was like, again, thinking of that quite a few of my designs are also animals and things like that. And I was like, animals is Africa. not East Africa, sorry. Certain animals are a huge part of us, yeah. But what has happened is they've become very cliched in kind of like postcards, cliche of that. But I was like, but they shouldn't be a cliche. They are an integral part of our lives. Historically, our lives existed like harmoniously with animals, African culture. So how can I depict these in a different way that's a bit more whether it's modern, whether it's my own twist on it, and something that's not stereotypical. So I started along those lines, a lot of like animals, that kind of thing. And then also hand lettering is something that I've done for a long time since I was young, one of the things I loved doing. And I just thought, how can I just write quotes and things that are things I love? So not necessarily always African. Sometimes it's just music lyrics because I also love music. And then as I did that, so initially I actually started by imitating, like, again, those people. Like there's some certain illustrators I love, like Stefan Kuntz, Lauren Holm, and I'd imitate these people, or not imitate, but like, that's the style, that's what you're going for. And then I realized my hand is just, it can do it, but it's also not doing it. There's something else it's doing here. But then also I was like, how can we also strip this? Because language is already such a colonialism. It's colonized us, right? So we were here talking English. We're not talking in another language. So, and this writing is it's a colonization as well, right? So how can I, and this is still a thing I go through all the time, how can I try and move this lettering to be something different? It has to still look like English because it has to be understood, but how can I make it look slightly different so it doesn't look like it's the same as other people's, and that's still something I'm trying to do all the time. Sometimes I fail, you fall back on the older, easier way that but the what I'm trying to do is how can you break it down to be something different? Because we're here, we have to write in English, or Swahili, which is written in a Roman numeral, but Roman alphabet, but how can I write it in a way that looks slightly different, hopefully more African? Yeah. Without it looking tribal as well. There's also that other side that's like when you look for tribal fonts and then you get a certain font that's exactly the same.
It has a look.
So, it has a look. Yeah.
I'd like to look at you, the visual artist, and because Kulula is a part of what you do, but in the same vein, you also teach graphic design to a bunch of great students at the Africa Digital Media Institute, and you also make logos. But in the same vein that we see the work you've done, for example, with AWDF, preventing violence against women, and the things that you've done, which you just wanted to express yourself with Black Lives Matter, there's something that we can see that these are all sort of almost connected pieces. We can recognize you in the work. And in some vein, I imagine that there's some inspiration behind that of where it comes.
Yeah, I think, okay, so there's the typical inspiration for these days, which is Instagram, which I look at, of course. There's a few artists that I follow and I love. I'm trying to remember exactly that right now. Unfortunately, I don't know why I'm blanking. A lot of them are American, mostly American, and some are like, I try follow like more POC artists. And then there's artists that are inspiration to me. Some of the OGs or whatever of graphic design. Someone like Paula Scher. That's one of my big influences, and more, I'd say not necessarily even the graphic design, but these sort of maps. She's made large scale maps. Those are kind of thing because I'm also into visualization.
I saw those.
Yeah. So those, and her sort of like breakdown of typography that she did in the 90s, and that's also influential to me. this, and also things like the 90s kind of typography, kind of like Spike Lee posters, Do the Right Thing poster, that kind of typography. I don't know if you know.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, living color. Those type of African American, they were outward looking to African type of typography in the 90s. Yeah, a tribe called Quest, art on their art, and it's unfortunate I don't know all the names of the artists. Some of them I can't remember right now, but those type of styles really highly influenced me a lot, especially when I was younger.
I would say what's really most important in your mind is coming through, because those are really, really great pieces. They had such limited digital tools at that time, but they were still able to try and recreate things that, we can see. And that's really, really important. So it's good. So look, do you have this brand? And it's Kulula. You have stationery goods there, postcards, and on the other side, you also freelance with, poster design, graphic design. And I'm looking at sort of repertoire of work, and I'm thinking to myself, it's a big question for you. What do you think about international collaboration and recognition for African creators like yourself? Is it difficult to obtain? Is it easy to obtain? And what's your stance on it? What
do I think of the international collaborations? I think they're great. I think they're wonderful, as long as there's acknowledgement of it's on equality. It's not like someone's handing you down from the global north to the global south, kind of like, here, wow, you've been given a collaboration, yay. But, acknowledgement that this is an artist, these people, that there's equality in that collaboration. You said, what do I think of it?
Yes, I was saying, what do you think of it? Is it difficult to obtain international collaboration?
It was. So 2020 changed a lot of things. Like, it changed, the world had to open. Now there was no physical barriers. It wasn't about physical, it was about the internet and where the reaches are. So I've seen, I think it depends. So depends on how you work it. I've seen one of my students go from just doing his amazing work on Instagram to now being, I think his main clients are Africa, especially the African American community. He's called Ignatius Arts. Yeah. And he was always talented. Yeah, he was always talented. Amazing. And but he pushed himself. He's reached next levels. Yeah. And there's no barrier for him. I don't think he's ever left the country, and he's now working in this, essentially his work is on galleries. I think he's entered NFT from like 2 weeks ago. So it can happen. It's hard to obtain, but in terms of like, I'd say kind of like corporate type of things, I'd say that's probably more word of mouth. In terms of like graphic design, actual graphic design, that's more about word of mouth and or creating your visibility online and getting, the sort of, and word of mouth means someone has endorsed you. So if you can get that online endorsement somehow, then you can get that collaboration. And I think to people who don't have that access of word of mouth and things like that, it's just about showing yourself as much as possible. So where can you show yourself? Online, these barriers have reduced. And then also just like going to places that seem random. Like, so when these things opened up, there's Texas State University is having a conference. So you attend that conference for free, and you then meet people in that conference. And then that means you get access to new people. There's a fellowship I applied for and got last year called Bacchanal d'Afrique. And it was through there, I meet new people. So then now there's no barrier. Me and someone in Oakland, now we know each other, and maybe that person will connect me to something else. So they're possible. They're much more possible now. I think the world has changed so much in that aspect that what I would have told you in 2019 to now, totally different. And but I'd say for corporate work, maybe there's still a slight, like, that still has a disparity in terms of probably still need to know someone or have certain amount of years of experience or things like that.
One of the things that I'm trying to do with Bantu, this podcast, is the idea that it's a little bit hard, maybe, for African creatives to gain international collaboration. One of the things that I see happening a lot, one of the things that we've seen happening, is that there are brands who operate within African markets. I'm sure that you have Indomie in Kenya. Exactly. And Indomie has this superhero sort of cartoon thing that they have been going on since maybe the past 10 years. I was a kid when that was introduced, but what I did find out was that was not created within Africa. The illustrators for that were actually outside Africa. And not only that, one of the ways that you can see that is because the superheroes for that brand, Indomie, are all dressed up in Western skin tight suits. And so we're looking at a really great example of how something was created outside Africa for Africans, but it does not resonate and it does not sort of infuse culture base that we would understand. And so this is kind of why we're bringing up this question. And to that point, do you think that getting represented by agents who are based outside Africa would help to improve this sort of international collaboration situation, especially with corporate?
I'm seeing that being represented by, I mean, first to say, that's one of the most annoying things, like when foreign adverts look foreign, like even even now, and because even in Kenya, you'll have an ad that is just being voiced over. It's been made for Africans. So you can tell these people are not Kenyan, they are South African, and you can tell these people are South African or they're Nigerian, and it's just been voiced over with a Kenyan voice. It's really annoying, and it's like, how hard would it have been really to make this? But in terms of getting that being represented by agents, I've seen that happening. I've seen it work. I've seen it. So I've seen it like with this former student, he's called Emmanuel, Ignatius Arts. I've seen him being represented and going far. And I've seen a couple of other artists represented by American art gallery studios. But I found that kind of representation is just for artists, like gallery, digital artists. That's where I'm seeing it mainly. In terms of things that are like corporate, like an advert, an Indomie, I don't know. I feel like that barrier is still so hard to break. I think it would be more like agencies. Someone would need to be within an agency. Like working in an agency rather than even represented. Like a WPP. True. And then I think then now it's about those WPP and people like that, about breaking it down and starting to collaborate then maybe with artists within their own country to
I don't see that happening a lot. That's the thing.
That's the problem.
So you've been there, right? And you had some time as a media art director, African, so the Kenyan Film Commission and WPP Scanlon and Arc Africa, which is completely sort of different but creative in itself. Is it something that is within the realm of possibility? Why do you think that we don't see so many, let's say, creative directors sort of commissioning local artists to come into the agency, do this project and do this thing? Is there something within the African situation that holds us back from that?
So I think it's first it's the not thinking of it, like maybe it's the barrier of the thought hasn't expanded yet. Like maybe because we've been told this is the formula, this is how it's meant to be, this is, you get this drawing done by this person, or you buy a stock image or that or whatever. So those things are not, it hasn't opened up yet, but I am seeing it increasing. I am seeing people what is it called? Commissioning artists. I know ARC itself commissioned a graffiti artist here called Chella for one of the brandings for a chicken place. It was amazing. I've seen, even for adverts, I've noticed that some agencies are commissioning like local poets and things like that to like create the scripts for them so that they're better and more Kenyan-like. And so it's expanding, and I think people just have to, because what ends up happening is a foreign organization comes and they see the opportunity, they see the talent, and they're going to use the Kenyans, and then that's it. Then they'll use that beautiful art or that whatever. But the Kenyan, we ourselves need to see our own talent, and I think it's probably that mind of like this. Maybe they're not seeing that stuff as great enough, or and then also money. I think it's also money. I think sometimes it's also just cheap. You're told reduce costs, don't do this. Yeah.
So they want to keep budgets as low as possible.
Yeah. And also maybe also a reputation of artists sometimes, reliability, that kind of thing. A stock image won't ghost you. It won't the stock image, the stock photo is not gonna disappear.
That's true. Thank you for your take on that. I think it's really important for these type of conversations to be had, especially in places like this, especially where people can hear about it, because you coming from that background and that experience, you're shedding a light on it that we haven't heard before. The interesting thing that I'm seeing is we may have a little bit of a disparity between engaging people who work in Africa within creative agencies, so in the local creative agencies in Nigeria and Kenya and Ghana, and those people who may work there may not necessarily be aware or just engaging with people who may be talented, who are trying to be independent illustrators like yourself, independent people who might maybe be independent art directors, for instance. And the super big question that I don't have the answer to, and I don't know if anyone does have the answer to, is how do we bridge that gap? How do we get these people talking to each other and thinking about, oh, maybe I'll call Kulula to come and make this particular piece of work at this agency. It's such a big question that it's just unknown, really. What is the kind of project that you would love to make if you had a really ridiculous amount of resources?
Oh my gosh, what? There's a couple of things.
Okay, tell me.
So one thing is probably, oh gosh. So because there's still something in me that I think that's always like a teacher kind of like in me, like a book, but like children's books kind of, or is it children or adult? But these illustrated, they're kind of becoming very popular right now, but graphic information books. So whether it's like about women of science, there's one of my favorite illustrators, Rachel Ignov. I always get her name wrong. I don't want to, but like butcher it. Rachel Ignotovsky or something. Sorry, butchering of name. But she has this series that's like women in science, women in this. And I love those. So that kind of thing. So I would love to make those type of informative they're almost like encyclopedia books, but are illustrated. That's my dream. If I had the money, do nothing else, just draw the book and research it and figure it out. So it's kind of like a mixture of the illustration world, the visualization world, the information world, bringing those things together. So maybe like about African history, and in that way also bring these things that are not book documented, not in books, African histories, that kind of thing. So that's hopefully something, if I had all the money, I hope to do it even if I don't have all the money. I think I'm going to still try to do those. Things like, I don't know about corporate collaboration, but I've seen like what Karabo Poppy did with Nike, where she, I don't know whether she has her shoe that has her illustrations, the shoe that has the Nike shoe with her illustrations. I mean, that's like any designer's dream, I think. She's done things that are amazing. So probably that's like, whoa, if I could do that.
You want to make a shoe?
Wow, if that would be incredible. A shoe, or like a shoe would be amazing. maybe
some kind of
some kind
fashion
of
thing.
shoe. Yeah, something like that, but not too like, so yeah, not too corporate. I mean, that's the thing. I don't want to get in with like corporate type world. So, maybe something different, alternative to that. Mhm.
You seem to
And
value your independence.
yeah, and also just the principles. Also, I'm not sure about what's going on with those corporations sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe like more like large scale art type things. Yeah, mural type things. Those are beautiful. Yeah.
That is something that I don't see very often too. There was one
Mm-hmm.
time, a couple of years ago, I knew this guy. I think his name is Abraham Art.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the one time where some restaurant had commissioned him to do a mural on their wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so that covered the entire front of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I'm hoping that I can see more of that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
till today, one of the major uses I've found for illustrators and people who actually can create this kind of work, you know what it is? It's designing the interior of tech companies and drawing illustrations on the inside.
And then you print a sticker that's whatever, that's stuck up. Yeah. The Lulu that I mentioned earlier, Lulu Kitololo, has been doing a lot of these recently. Yeah. So she's opening the space. And there's something that she's actually connected me to, but maybe for the future. Yeah. But
cool.
So the space is open in Kenya, but still, it's just not there yet. Yeah. There's a lot of graffiti artists that are amazing. Yeah, there's oh gosh, the most famous one. But there are amazing graffiti things that have come up in Kenya. Wise 2, there's a guy called Wise 2. Amazing, amazing graffiti murals all over Nairobi. Yeah. That's great.
One of the things that I saw from trying to see the places that you've been on stands and essentially the general vibe of Kenya that I get is that there's definitely a larger appreciation for art and the arts, especially visual and creative arts in Kenya. Was that something that you can sense or is true?
Yeah, it's true. It's in terms of it's growing, like incredibly growing. Like I'd say 10 years ago, there was one thing that was like a craft fair that sold where it was very foreign as well. A lot of expat driven or like, settled settled foreigners here kind of driving the whole thing. And where they sell some art products, some curio type of things, some high-end kind of curio type of tribal kind of things. And in fact, one of my influences I haven't mentioned is a lady. It was at one of these around like many years ago, like when I was much younger, before I'd even gone to start doing illustration. I went to one of these and I found a card from a lady called Harriet Staines, a foreign Kenyan, British Kenyan, who now lives in England. And she was an illustrator selling greeting cards and wrapping paper. And she was the only person at this thing was a foreign, not a Kenyan, selling these illustrated goods that were there. And it was I was like, how can I do this thing? And how come there's no, Black Kenyan doing this? And that was probably one of my first influence. And she's still there at those things, probably still the only person who has one of the biggest following, and she's still in all the shops. Yeah. But she's foreign. I mean, no, she's not foreign. I mean, she's Kenyan, but she's British Kenyan. And then, but now it's grown to a point, and especially over 2020, that there's so many now. There's so many stationary art brands that are coming up. There's more than I can't follow. And there's so many artists selling prints, selling on Instagram. And that's one of the most wonderful things. It's like, it just blew up people. And because people were in their homes, people needed art in their homes during this time. So many, I've seen former students, now they have a Instagram highlight prints for sale, and it's just so good to see that happening. It's excellent.
It's amazing. Yeah. So people are buying all of this.
People are buying art, and people are buying digital art, and it's really growing. Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it's such an optimistic outlook,
Yeah.
especially in Kenya. So there's something I'd like to ask, but because you've brought this up now, I think it's important to ask this next question, which is, what is next for Kulula Goods?
Kulula. Okay, well, I guess I'm still going to continue. I'm still selling what I am doing now in terms of selling. So notebooks, stationery, greeting cards. But I want to also move more into art. Like, I don't know, it's all art, but in terms of more tangible, handmade type of things.
Yeah.
I'm looking into doing a bit more printing, like lino cut printing. I want to do that, something I've always loved, and just did it once in that one course that I did at the end of my sociology course. And it's something I love. And so that would be tangibles. I think I'm more I'm looking to create more things that are tangible, and also because there's a sustainability aspect that I'm very aware of. When you printing a lot and using good paper that's not always necessarily, some of it I try to get paper that's sustainable, but sometimes you can't get that. So what ways can I like reduce that kind of footprint or do that kind of, so what about creating art that's actually tangible things and products that are things people can use? So that's what I'm moving into more, maybe like things like hope I'm explaining correctly.
No, it's good.
And then
it's good.
And more art, and more like actual art created by me rather than a product. For a long time I've moved away from showing my face because it was meant to be like a product, a thing. This Kulula doesn't have a human, it's just a thing, but I think I want to move more into me as an artist being the one behind it.
I did have to work a little bit hard to find out that you were the one behind it, because I thought, hey, look, Kulula sounds like such a nice word, but I know that's not somebody's name. So who is Kulula? And I found you, Nzilani. So I'm very happy about that.
Thank you.
What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Probably just to do the thing. Just to do the thing, because like if you just do the thing, it's very cliche, but like what's the worst thing that could happen from doing the thing? Because I struggle sometimes, a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of like, there's someone really important to me that always says it's not failure, it's feedback. So
she sells oysters?
She sells what? She sells oysters at the street.
I love that. So we've sort of come to the end of our time, and I have to say I'm really, really happy that we were able to have this discussion. I'm really happy that we were able to learn quite a lot from you, Nzilani, because your take on this and your experiences have really added something to this triad of sort of this type of discussion that we're trying to have. Where can the audience find you on the internet?
So the Kulula that we've talked about, which is on Instagram @_Kulula. The website for it, which is still like, it's there, but like in development. So it's kululagoods.com. So Kulula is there's a big airline in South Africa called Kulula.
I saw that.
It's totally different. So Kulula in Zulu means easy, but Kulula in my language, Kamba, means to draw. So it's Kulula. It's pronounced a bit differently.
Right.
So I couldn't get kulula.com. So it's kululagoods.com. And then my website, nzilanisimu.com, which has more of my freelance artwork. I don't know if one day they will all merge. I'm not sure. For now, not yet. And then, and that's it.
Thank you.
Those are the main ones.
We'll put all the links in the show notes, and we'll be looking forward to those art and tangible pieces. Watch this space, everyone. And thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have been here. Thank you.
Our guest this week was Nzilani Simu. Follow her artwork Kulula on social media to keep up with her. This episode was produced by me, Adetunji Paul. Our music this week was produced by BrizyBeats and Vybezmachine. Bantu, the African Creative Podcast, is a project of Studio Black. We're on Instagram at Studio BLVCK and on Twitter at Studio BLVCK_. Thank you for listening, and until next time, goodbye from everywhere.